Lyra Ashworth stood at the edge of the training field, watching the other pack members laugh together after practice. None of them called her over. None of them ever did. She had grown used to being the girl nobody wanted, the one whose own parents had died when she was young, and left her with no one to speak for her. In the Ashcroft pack, silence was the only thing she owned. That evening, she was summoned to the Elder Hall. She thought perhaps they needed help with the kitchens again, or maybe another chore no one else wanted. Instead, she found the pack elders seated around a long table, their faces grim, and a folded parchment resting in the center like something dangerous. "Sit," said Elder Ravik, the oldest among them. Lyra sat, her hands folding neatly in her lap. "The Blackthorn pack has agreed to end hostilities with us," Ravik continued, "but peace has a price. Alpha King Cade Thornwood has demanded an offering from our pack, a symbol of goodwill." Lyra's stomach turned. "What kind of offering?" Ravik did not look at her when he answered. "You." The room went quiet. Lyra felt the blood drain from her face. "Me? Why me?" "You have no mate bond, no family standing, no political value," said another elder, as though listing her worth like inventory. "Your loss will cost this pack nothing." The words cut deeper than claws ever could. She wanted to argue, to ask what right they had to trade her like she was nothing more than a debt to be settled. But she had learned long ago that fighting back changed nothing. So she simply nodded, because nodding was easier than breaking apart in front of people who would not care either way. The next morning, she was placed in a car with 2 silent guards and driven toward Blackthorn territory. She did not cry. She had cried enough in her life for people who never noticed. Instead, she watched the trees blur past the window and wondered what kind of death awaited her at the hands of the most feared Alpha King in the region. The Blackthorn compound was larger than anything she had imagined, its walls built from dark stone, its air thick with power she could almost taste. She was led through long hallways until she reached a grand door, and when it opened, she saw him for the first time. Alpha King Cade Thornwood stood near the window, tall and broad-shouldered, his presence filling the room the way thunder fills the sky before a storm. His eyes were sharp, calculating, the eyes of a man who had spent his life at war. She braced herself for cruelty. But the moment his gaze landed on her, something shifted. His entire body went rigid. His breath caught. The calm, commanding king dissolved for just a heartbeat, replaced by something raw and stunned. "Mate," he whispered. Lyra blinked, certain she had misheard. "What?" He took a step closer, studying her as though she were a ghost risen from the past. "You're my fated mate," he said, his voice low and unsteady. "I searched for you for 10 years. I was told you died in the war between our packs when you were a child." Lyra shook her head slowly. "I don't understand." "Your scent," he said. "Your eyes. It's you. It has always been you." The guards behind her shifted uncomfortably, clearly not expecting this either. Cade's second in command, a stern woman named Freya, stepped forward with a frown. "My king, are you certain? This is the Ashcroft offering. She was sent here as payment for peace, not—" "She is not payment," Cade snapped, and the room seemed to grow colder with his anger. "She is my mate, and no one will speak of her as though she is a object to be exchanged." Lyra's heart pounded. Part of her wanted to feel relief, but a larger part of her felt suspicion clawing at her chest. Fate bonds were sacred among wolves, yes, but she had learned from a young age that even sacred things could be twisted by those in power. She did not know this man. She did not trust this man, and yet her wolf, quiet and long ignored, stirred inside her with a recognition she could not deny. "I don't know what you want from me," she said carefully, "but I'm not something to be claimed. I've spent my whole life being told what I'm worth by other people. I won't do that here too." For a moment, surprise flickered across Cade's face, quickly replaced by something like respect. "Fair enough," he said. "Then let me earn your trust instead of demanding it." That night, she was given her own quarters, guarded but not imprisoned, comfortable but unfamiliar. She sat by the window for hours, turning the day's events over in her mind. She had arrived expecting to be discarded, and instead, she had been called precious by a man with the power to command an army. It should have felt like a victory. Instead, it felt like standing on ice. unsure if it would hold her weight. Over the following weeks, Cade kept his word. He did not force the bond, did not demand she share his bed or his title before she was ready. Instead, he sought her out in small ways. He asked about her day, he noticed when she skipped meals, and quietly ensured food was brought to her room. He listened when she spoke, really listened, in a way no one in her old pack ever had. Slowly, carefully, something inside Lyra began to soften. But not everyone within Blackthorn welcomed her. Whispers followed her through the halls, calling her the discarded girl, the payment nobody wanted, until the king decided she was valuable. Freya, though loyal to Cade, watched Lyra with sharp, testing eyes, unwilling to fully accept her as Luna material. One evening, Lyra overheard two pack members speaking outside her door. She was traded like cattle, one said. How can someone like that lead us? The king says she's his fated mate, the other replied, unconvinced. Fate or not, weakness is weakness. Lyra closed her eyes, old wounds reopening. She had spent her whole life being told she was worthless, and even here, in a place meant to honor the fate bond, that same poison followed her. She almost turned back to her room in silence, the way she always had. But something new had begun growing inside her, something Cade's patience and respect had planted without her realizing it. Instead of hiding, she opened the door. The two pack members startled, clearly embarrassed to be caught. Lyra lifted her chin, steadying her voice despite her racing heart. I did not choose to be sent here as payment, she said. That was the choice of people who never valued me. But I am done being spoken about like I have no voice. If you have doubts about me, say them to my face, not through my door. The pack members stared at her, stunned into silence. Word of the exchange spread quickly through Blackthorn, and though some still doubted her, others began to look at her differently, not as a discarded girl, but as someone with a spine of her own. Cade heard about it too. When he found her later that evening in the garden, there was something like pride in his eyes. You didn't need me to defend you, he said. No, Lyra agreed. But it would be nice if you meant it when you say I matter, and not just because fate decided it for you. Cade stepped closer, his expression serious. Lyra, I searched for you long before I ever knew you were the child my family had been protecting. When I believed you had died, I mourned a person I had never even met, because the bond told me you existed, and then it told me you were gone. Finding you again, alive, is not an obligation to me. It is the answer to 10 years of feeling incomplete. For the first time since arriving in Blackthorn, Lyra felt something crack open inside her chest, not from pain, but from the possibility of being wanted for herself. Meanwhile, back in Ashcroft territory, the elders who had traded her away began to realize their mistake. News had reached them that the Alpha King had named the discarded girl his fated Luna, elevating her status beyond anything the Ashcroft pack could have imagined. What they had seen as a worthless offering was now standing at the side of the most powerful leader in the region. Panic spread through the Ashcroft elders. If Cade discovered the full truth of how poorly Lyra had been treated in her old home, the fragile peace they had built could collapse, and worse, Blackthorn's wrath could turn toward them entirely. Elder Ravik traveled personally to Blackthorn, requesting an audience with the king, hoping to smooth things over before the truth surfaced. But Cade had already learned enough. He had seen the way Lyra flinched at raised voices, the way she apologized for things that were not her fault, the way she still sometimes hesitated to eat until she was certain there was enough for everyone else first. He did not need a confession to understand what her life had been like before Blackthorn. When Ravik arrived, Cade received him coldly, Lyra standing beside him, no longer the frightened girl who had once been driven away in silence, but someone finding her footing as Luna. You come seeking continued peace, Cade said, his voice carrying the weight of command. Yet you built that peace on the suffering of someone your pack was supposed to protect. Ravik attempted to explain, citing tradition, sacrifice, necessity. But Cade raised a hand, silencing him. I will not go to war with Ashcroft, Cade said, but I will not honor a treaty built on cruelty either. From this day, any agreement between our packs will be renegotiated, this time with fair terms, and Lyra will have no part in it unless she chooses to. Lyra felt a surge of something powerful rise within her. Not vengeance, but a quiet reclaiming of the power that had once been stripped from her without her consent. "I have one condition," she said, stepping forward. Both Cade and Ravik turned to her in surprise. "The Ashcroft Pack will create a formal apology, not just to me, but to any pack member who has been treated as less than they deserve. And going forward, no person in Ashcroft will be traded, sold, or offered as payment for peace. Ever again." Ravik, humbled and cornered, agreed. He had little choice, standing before the might of Blackthorn, and the steady resolve of the woman his pack had once thrown away like she meant nothing. In the following months, Lyra settled into her role as Luna, not because fate had chosen her, but because she chose herself, every single day. She trained alongside Blackthorn's warriors, learned the histories of the pack, and slowly earned the trust and respect of those who had once doubted her. Freya, in time, became one of her closest allies, impressed by the strength Lyra had carried quietly beneath years of mistreatment. And Cade, true to his promise, never let a day pass without reminding her that she was chosen, not because destiny demanded it, but because he genuinely loved the woman she had become, despite everything she had endured. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains surrounding Blackthorn territory, Cade found Lyra standing on the same balcony where she had once watched her old life fade into the distance. "Regrets?" he asked softly, coming to stand beside her. Lyra shook her head, a small, genuine smile forming on her lips. "For the first time in my life, none." Cade took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. "The Ashcroft Pack saw you as worthless. I saw you as my missing half before I even knew your name. But the truth is, Lyra, your worth was never something anyone else could decide. Not them, not even me." Lyra turned to face him fully, feeling the weight of years of loneliness finally begin to lift. "Then I suppose," she said quietly, "it's time I decide it for myself." And beneath the fading light of dusk, standing as equals rather than as payment and king, Lyra Ashworth stepped fully into the life she had once believed she would never deserve, not as someone's sacrifice, but as someone's chosen equal, standing tall as the true Luna of Blackthorn,